The good news, in the last video, the good news is I'm back, but the mould isn't. The good news is I'm back at the boat today to do 1 or 2 jobs, but guess what? The mould isn't. The seats look better than when I left them the last time I left the boat, but I'm here to do one job, one specific job. When I left the boat last time, I checked the engines and I found that 3 of the screws holding one of the impellers in place, one of the covers, had their heads missing, and this is really unusual, and I think that they've just worn through and rotted through and dropped off, but the seal was still good. So I've had to source some new screws. I've done that, and today I'm going to try and get those screws out, but I think it's going to be a bigger job and more of a challenge than what I imagined. Let's hope not. In our last video, we set the question, do we stay or do we go? We've made our mind up, and we're going to tell you very soon. It's about time that this baseball cap came to the boat. It's an old Sealine Forum cap. However, this one's got some history, because in 2010 this one went to Afghanistan, and just about everybody I served with had a picture with this taken, and I produced a morphed video of everybody under the hat with the Sealine logo being the prominent thing of the video. It's still around, it's still online. I encourage you to check it out, but it's faded with dignity, I think, and I'd be very sad to see this hat go. Never do anything on a boat without first making a mug of coffee. Next thing I'm doing is just making sure I've got a bucket, because there will be a little bit of water coming out of here and I want to catch it, stopping it going into the bilge. So these remaining ones are loosened off really easy, so I'm hoping that the stubs on the other ones will abstract quite easily as well. That's good news. I know myself, I don't do these up very tight. I just do them against the gasket and give them a little twist. Now you can see a closer look at the ones that have sheared off and the 3 I've just removed. I think there's just the brass has worn through. The new ones are stainless steel, a bit worrying because they're supposed to be brass. I'm going to try and source some brass ones in the meantime, but yeah. May even convert that to a thumb screw as well, but a gentle prise. Let's see if we can get this off now. First though, to tackle some of this jug of coffee. Judging by how easy these screws came undone, I'm going to try and abstract the last 3 screw ends just gently with a pair of pliers. I'm hoping they'll come out without any further drama. Lovely. Another benefit of not doing them up too tight in the first place. Lovely. There we go. That's one coming out nicely. In fact, all 3 of the old stubs came out without too much difficulty at all, which was fantastic news. All that was remaining to do was to clean up the face of the water pump, remove all of the old gasket, and thereby allowing the new gasket to make a really good seal with the cover plate. Incidentally, I did check the impeller and make sure it was okay. It hadn't been in the engine very long, it was still supple and there was no damage, so I was confident that we were good to leave that one in place. It isn't always worth changing them just because you have the cover off. They're very expensive items, but also if you've got any damage, they must be changed. So that's the cover cleaned up. There's a little O-ring that goes on the back, and there's a channel on the back of the cover. I've cleaned it out with a little threading file. And the next thing to ensure happens is to make sure that O-ring goes into there properly. And then there's a D shape on the cover, and that D shape needs to line up with the D shape on the pump itself. If you're tightening a pressure cover onto a gasket of any sort, it's always worth tightening in opposites. It really just shares the pressure out and keeps the gasket sealed properly. I also made sure the faces of the gasket covers were absolutely spotlessly clean, and I think this was where the problem was of my own doing as well, because the last time I changed this impeller, I did so at sea and I didn't get a chance to completely clean the faces off correctly, and I think that I'd left some of the old gasket in place, which allowed some of the water to seep through and eventually corrode the screws that were holding the cover in place. So a big black mark for me. Going forward though, the only thing left to do was to start the engines and run them, check for leaks, and then have a good feel of the water pump housing to make sure it was still cold and working correctly. I thought about it, we've put the figures down on paper, and although it's a lot more money, we've been here at Lowestoft for 10 years now, and that's a long time. And it's time just to have a little bit of a gap and go somewhere else. Yes, we don't want to leave here, it's a fantastic place to moor, but it's time to change just for a season, because we need that turnkey boat availability, and being on the Broads means that we can just come onto the boat any weather, any time of year, pop the key in and go somewhere, even if it's just going up to another mooring and having a picnic. So that's our decision made for next year, but what we haven't decided upon is whether we're going to hang on to our mooring in Lowestoft a little bit longer. We've got an awful lot of maintenance to do. It's a big year, and we've got a couple of projects that we're working on as well to actually change the boat. So it might make it a very special S34, and it may be the only one of its kind by the time we're finished with what we want to do. Stay with us for those projects. Don't forget to push that little likey bell up in the corner that keeps you informed of every time we post a video. If you feel like it, please subscribe as well, and join us on our journey as we go to pastures new in 2023.